Shiraya, an experienced player of the well-known MMORPG game Undertale, opened his eyes and found himself in a region surrounded by old structures that have been overgrown by plants, which he recognizes as Akiba. He looked around the crowd of confused players as he made his way toward the silverleaf tree in Akiba. While checking his items on the status screen, he noticed that he could not log out. He then looked through his friend list and began a voice chat with another gamer, Natsugu. They discover that they are in a physical representation of the Undertale after meeting at the silverleaf tree. While they continued to explore, they made the decision to accept this world as their actual home. They ultimately run with Akatsuki, a member of Shiraya's former party who had been keeping an eye on the two. They discovered Akatsuki was a girl hiding within a male avatar. She was delighted to accept Shiraya's invitation to join his party. The next day, the leader of the Crescent Moon Alliance, Marielle, greets Shiraya. There are currently 19 members of Crescent Moon Alliance online, according to Marielle. She said that guilds are seeking new members and that some are also trying to fill open positions with people. Due on her Undertale experience, Natsugu believes that the world would be simple to live in. Shiraya responds that the new expansion has transformed the game by introducing new monsters, quests, and items. Marielle suggests that Shiraya should join her guild, but he hesitantly declines her offer, and they all leave. The party discusses whether death is permanent in this world, or perhaps it could be a means of escaping back to Japan. They decide to check out the combat system and head to an area with monsters where they encounter Briar Weasel's monsters. The party finds problems in using the new command system. They retreat at Shiraya's order, but a Trifid attacks him before he can cast a skill. Shiraya gave effective orders and, with the help of his comrades, managed to slay the monsters. At the Crescent Moon Alliance, Sarara pleads to Marielle for help because some people are chasing her. Hidden in the shadows, a player with the features of a cat observes the pursuit. Shiraya's party is fighting monsters again. Natsugu dodges an attack from a Trifid and allows Shiraya and Akatsuki to finish it. Shiraya noted that their bodies seemed to know the basic combat movements, even without a command. As long as they intended to fight, they could use their skills and magic by calling out the skill name. On the trip back home, Akatsuki decides to travel separately from the group for a little while to practice using her tracker skills. Shiraya told her to meet them at the south gate, and he'll use magic light to inform her of their movement. As she disappeared into the forest, the two remaining men applauded her current finesse at blinking. The party arrived at the local hospital area when they were suddenly aware of the movement ahead. Shiraya and Natsugu are attacked by the suspected player killers, who order them to surrender their items, but they refuse to do so, and a terrific battle breaks out between them. Shiraya quickly takes command and gives effective orders to Natsugu while using different spells on the enemy, and eventually, they manage to prevail over them. The offender's party leader named Smash tried to call hidden reinforcements, but Akatsuki had already subdued them, much to his demise. Later, Shiraya again meets Marielle, who requests him to save one of her guild members named Sarara trapped in Suzukino. At first, Shiraya was reluctant to accept this mission, but after witnessing the determination of his party members, he decided to go for it. Later, Shiraya and Natsugu summons griffins instead of horses, much to Akatsuki's surprise. Shiraya told Akatsuki it was a long story, giving her his hand so she could hop on, which she did with a blush on her face. In the sky, Akatsuki was amazed by the view as they flew off towards Suzukino. Shiraya's party makes its way to the depths of Palm. Upon arriving at the entrance, Akatsuki notes that the area looks different in person compared to the game. A little bit later, Shiraya and Natsugu are walking through the depths when Akatsuki reports in to tell them that there are no enemies in sight. Akatsuki and Shiraya notice the presence of Ratmen, a low-level type of demi-human monster that can spread a plague debuff. Instinctively detecting the level difference between them and Shiraya's party, the monsters decide not to attack until they can have them cornered. For this reason, Shiraya decides to take another route when Akatsuki notices the rat men gathering at the top of the tunnel. The scene switches to Sarara inside a house. Ian arrives and Sarara asks about situations in town, but it is the same as usual. Some Brigania members are seen robbing the Earthling merchants and harassing them. On the other hand, Natsugu almost falls from a cracking bridge. Shiraya heard more cracking sounds and tried to stop Akatsuki and Natsugu when the bridge cracked. Just as Shiraya reaches for her, the bridge cracks underneath him, and he plummets below. Although Akatsuki wants to jump down after him, Natsugu holds her back. Shiraya is struggling to survive in the water, afraid that if he dies, he will be transported back to the cathedral in Akiba. As he heard Akatsuki and Natsugu call his name, he reminisced about his life back in the real world where he was an introvert. As Shiraya regains consciousness, he sees Akatsuki hovering over him worriedly while Natsugu is cleaning his sword. He thanks his comrades for saving him. Suddenly, they switched zones and became aware of the presence of an extremely large rat man, and Shiraya supposed it was a new monster. Although it was risky, Shiraya decided to eliminate Rat Maso, and like always, Shiraya's intelligent commands and the swift actions of his comrades brought them victory. In Suzukino, Demikos, the leader of Brigandia, makes his threat known as he kills a member of his guild who was trying to back out of their habit of killing and stealing from Earthlings. Infuriated that Sarara and Nayanta still eluded him, he ordered his men to continue searching for them. Natsugu recaps that Brigandia was ruling Suzukino, to which Akatsuki recollects that Brigandia had a bad reputation even before the catastrophe. Although Sarara was on Demika's friends list, he couldn't find her because she was in someone's private zone. However, the second she left it, they could find her at any moment. Because of this, Shiraya asked Akatsuki to hide herself to watch over Brigandia's members. After Demika's failed to ping Sarara's location, Londark questioned why he was so eager to find Sarara. The burly monk replied that he had to teach Sarara a lesson for running away. One Brigandia member relayed to Demika's of two strangers entering the town. Suddenly, Demika's got Sarara's current location. Shiraya already noticed that they were being spied on and had Akatsuki keep watch of the streets. Inside, Shiraya saw Sarara together with Nayanta. Later, Shiraya introduced himself to her. Nayanta told her that Shiraya was very smart and would surely have a very good plan. Sarara asked if Nayanta already was acquainted with Shiraya, and he lied that Shiraya usually checked him for fleas, which Shiraya quickly denied. Sarara was glad she could return to Akiba but wondered about Nayanta. Shiraya told Nayanta that Natsugu and Akatsuki accompanied him. Nayanta accepted Shiraya's proposal to accompany them back to Akiba, pleasing Sarara. Demikos and his guild blocked the path beyond the town. As the fight progresses, Shiraya explains the strengths of the monk and swashbuckler classes and asks Sarara to prepare healing for the party. Demikos orders the rest of his guild to charge. However, Natsugu intercepts them. Londark orders the guild's mages to heal Demikos, while Shiraya tells Sarara to heal Nayanta. Nayanta dodges the monk's attacks, then cuts the vines with a flurry of strikes, leaving Demikos with low health. Confused by this sudden burst of damage, Londark readies a spell and orders the mages to recast heal. But without warning, he and the entire mage squad get assassinated by Akatsuki. As a last-ditch effort, Demikos tries to attack Shiraya, only for Sarara to strike the final vine, sending him to the cathedral. Having won the duel, Shiraya, Natsugu, and Nayanta summon griffins to start the journey home. Through telepathy, Sarara informs Mariel that she is safe with Shiraya and friends, relieving the guild master to tears. Sarara apologizes if she has worried them before ending the call. She asks Shiraya if they are safe, and he and Nayanta console her. They have crossed the Lightport channel, and there are no griffins that could allow anyone to catch up to them. Sarara feels flustered and again thanks the group for saving her. The party lays out a camp to spend the night while gathering firewood. With the camp set up and the sunset, Natsugu celebrates the accomplishment by sitting back and relaxing. Soon, the smell of cooked meat causes Natsugu to jump to his feet. Shiraya and Akatsuki also notice this and follow the scent trail deep into the forest, only to find Nayanta and Sarara cooking delicious food that surprisingly had a real taste. Sarara asks how long Nayanta and Shiraya knew each other, and the former answers that he, Shiraya, and Natsugu were all part of the debauchery tea party. While spending the night within the cave, Natsugu and Shiraya wonder how old Sarara is while she sleeps. Shiraya compares her to two twins named Talia and Minori and recalls helping them when they were still at a very low level. Riding atop the griffins, Natsugu alerts them that dark storm clouds are rolling in. Because of rain, they take refuge inside the house of an earthling named Fedor, who offers them shelter. Shiraya witnesses some children playing around, bringing Shiraya to think again about Talia and Minori, which seems to trouble him. Elsewhere, Talia, along with his guild members, marches through a monster-filled land. His guild master lashes out at him for particularly no reason. His sister also gets wounded during the mission, much to his dismay. Now in Akiba, Talia and his guild traverse through the town when he hears Shiraya's voice. Peering through the crowd, he spots Shiraya being welcomed back by Mariel and the Crescent Moon Alliance. He thinks about approaching Shiraya but is called by his guild master to hurry up. Obeying his orders, he turns his back on Shiraya, who spots Talia with a determined expression. Later, Nana teaches some of the Crescent Moon chefs how to prepare tasty food and explains how chefs still need the proper cooking level to prepare more difficult foods. Henrietta tells Mariel to keep the discovery about tasty food a secret, while mentioning that Shiraya decided on this non-disclosure. Shortly afterward, Akatsuki is seen in a separate room, clearly uncomfortable as Henrietta fawns over her. Henrietta gushes about how she has the opportunity to dress up not only Ashlyn but Akatsuki too, summoning Ashlyn to pull in a rack of dresses for the assassin to wear. Akatsuki attempts to escape by using Shiraya as a cover, only to discover that he permitted Henrietta to dress her up, causing her to scream. The scene cuts to nighttime. Mariel and Shiraya are the only ones awake. Marielle covers her sleeping guild members with blankets before the two go to her room to talk. When she asks him what kind of job would be considered big for him, he diverts her question by asking about the situation in Akiba. She explains the whole guild situation in Akiba, which is becoming worse day by day, and how she tried to resolve the problems at hand by forming an alliance between smaller guilds, but all in vain. Shiraya takes a walk in Akiba's streets to ponder the city's situation, realizing that everyone was responsible, in different ways, for the current situation. Shiraya has a flashback about Kanami that states that he can solve problems like this. At this moment, Shiraya discovers that Taoya and Minori are some players that have joined a fraudulent guild called Hamelin that steals EXP pots from new players. Shiraya again thinks about guilds and how he hates joining one because of their pathetic conspiracies. However, he realizes the importance of having a proper guild. He calls Minori and learns how she and Taoya are trapped in Hamelin. He decided to save them. Shiraya requests help from Crescent Moon Alliance to banish Hamelin Guild to save the city while announcing the establishment of his own guild. Shoryu asks what the guild is called. Shiraya remembers watching The Horizon with Akatsuki, Natsubu, and Nayanta before revealing the guild name, Log Horizon. In the Imperial Garden Forest, Natsubu, Shoryu, and Hien attempt to capture the Imperial Forest boar. They cannot kill the boars because they would yield only 2 kilograms of meat, but if they capture the boar, a good chef can use the entire animal. Natsubu uses Anchor Howl to freeze several boars while Shoryu and Hien capture them. Crescent Moon Headquarters is working hard on a carpentry project while Asuka, Liliana, and Ashlyn are trying on maid outfits. The guild's chefs are practicing their cooking skills under Nayanta's tutelage. From behind a barrel, Sarara is crushing on him. Marielle is distressed because she hasn't left her office for 3 days due to all the paperwork. Suddenly, Henrietta enters with another pile of paperwork. Shiraya also enters bringing even more paperwork. Henrietta told Shiraya that she had already compiled a list Shiraya requested, to which she and Marielle praised Henrietta's work. On the other side, Akatsuki is following a Hamelin member selling EXP pots to a collector from the Black Sword Knights. Natsugu and the other guild members return with the captured boars and other animals. Marielle gets buried under even more paperwork. As Henrietta returns to work, Marielle cries out that all the eyeglasses frighten her. The next day, the hunting party finished the day's catch of boar. Later, Shiraya contacts Minori telling her of current events and asking her to hold just a little longer. Shiraya is working with Crescent Moon Alliance to raise 5 million gold funds but didn't disclose its purpose yet. Moreover, they use their knowledge of making real tasty food to their advantage by setting up a food stand. At night, Shiraya and Nayanta discover that the empty buildings in the city are for sale, once mere background sets in the game. He asks for Saujiro's help in this, who acquiesces with full confidence in him. The next day, the West Wind Brigade is helping at the food stand. Shiraya announces it is time for Phase 2 in front of the guild center. Inside the Crescent Moon Alliance Guild Hall, Henrietta coddles Akatsuki before she undertakes the negotiation between the production guilds and Crescent Moon Alliance. At the Dragon's Nest Cafe, Callison arrives first at the table, having been acquainted with Marielle long ago. Marielle explains that they need a supply chain for ingredients, but Callison presses Marielle to consider a full partnership with Shopping District 8. Marielle remembers Shiraya's words, she only needs to smile, while Henrietta deals with the negotiations. In Hamelin's Guild Hall, Minori is doing forced crafting labor. She has received numerous calls from Shiraya since that day, and he has made many friends. Minori realizes that their situations are the opposite even though they are in the same world. Later, some guild leaders visit Crescent Moon Alliance for an investment deal. Henrietta and Marielle ask for a 5 million gold investment, which has been unheard of in Elder Tale. The sheer magnitude of the investment makes the guild leaders think they are giving money towards a legendary new quest that they do not know about, and perhaps they can't make a big profit if they invest in this project. Henrietta explains that after the operation is completed, the Crescent Moon Alliance will inform all the investors of the details, along with all the recipes and research of the food they've made. On the other hand, Tuya asks for notices of Shiraya from Minori. He then tells that he saw Shiraya the other day, but he couldn't call for his help because he doesn't deserve the right to be rescued by him. Henrietta and Marielle are resting from the strenuous negotiations when Natsubu, Nayanta, and Akatsuki arrive with sweets. That night, Isaac of Black Sword Knights splits his squad for sparring. Rizarek asks him about the invitation from the Crescent Moon Alliance and Log Horizon, recollecting Marielle's unsuccessful conference. Isaac replies that he's less intrigued about her and more about Shiraya. At the same time, Shiraya uses telepathy to talk to Minori, indicating that he will make a move to save her soon, and she resolves to follow in his footsteps. Some of the guilds anticipate that this meeting would be a continuation of the failed conference Marielle assembled. Shiraya refutes this notion, announcing that he seeks negotiations only to improve the city's living state, prompting William's disinterest and departure, and Silver Sword's withdrawal from the council. Elsewhere, the Hamelin captives prepare to escape as Tuya relays the plan to everyone else, escape out the door of the guild hall. Shiraya discusses the EXP pot racketeering, arguing that the lack of established laws allows such practices. Krusty asks of a guild's fate should they refuse the laws, to which Shiraya proposes harsh sanctioning banishment if needed. Ainz, Isaac, and Krusty dispute that a guild could possess enough power to wage war in defiance. Shiraya then plays his trump card and reveals that he bought the guild center using the 5 million gold he obtained from the production guilds and blackmails the guilds to gain absolute control of the conference. Henrietta and Nayanta expose that the guild center is where players must go to register guilds and access their bank. Since Shiraya owns the bank system, he can effectively freeze the bank assets of any player by restricting their access. Michitaka announces that the 3 main production guilds were the sole investor in the purchase. Flashing back to an earlier day, the production guild leaders are informed of the simple secret of real food preparation to their dismay. Shiraya states that people have historically paid ludicrous amounts for the knowledge they simply did not possess. Meanwhile, as the captives manage to escape the Hamelin Hall, Minori and Tuya are intercepted by Shredder. Akatsuki comes to their rescue, forcing Shredder to release Tuya with her signature kick. Even while threatened by the angered summoner, she nonchalantly sends his name to Shiraya, who puts him on the blacklist. Shredder is kicked out of the building where Natsugu and some other adventurers subsequently capture him. Shiraya receives a call from Akatsuki reporting the success of the rescue mission, which makes him crack a smile. Isaac becomes furious at Shiraya's break-in composure, but agrees to the alliance provided he can negotiate the details. Marielle could hardly believe the dramatic change to Akiba's market as real food preparation is now widespread, but Henrietta says the real change to the city takes more time than the week past. Flashing back to the Round Table Alliance, Shiraya and Marielle explain that this new world is different from the normal Elder Tale game as people with high crafting skills can invent new things like a steam engine and other items that were not part of the game. Shiraya presents new laws like banning players killing and giving equal rights to all players irrespective of their levels. He further adds that all these rights and laws apply to the NPC of this world as well, because if they did not receive equal rights, a war between adventurers and NPC would be inevitable. With this sobering thought as a backdrop, the main battle guilds express their support for the Round Table Alliance. After the Round Table Alliance was founded, the secret of cooking was widely publicized, and the Alliance collectively introduced its leadership over Akiba. Meanwhile, Shiraya stays in the background and allows the others to be the Alliance's public face. Sometime afterward, Marielle and Henrietta comment that Hamelin seems to have disbanded, and its members, without exception, departed Akiba. Almost all of Hamelin's captives decided to join the Crescent Moon Alliance, which subsequently moved into a larger guild hall to accommodate its expanded membership. Meanwhile, Log Horizon moves into its new quarters. Shiraya explains that the property was inexpensive because the building is far from the city's center and a giant tree grew through the center that destroyed the elevator hallway and stairway. As Marielle and Henrietta leave, Shiraya asks after Tuya and Minori. They hint at having some news of the twins but leave without disclosing any details. Shortly after, Nana steps out to purchase ingredients for dinner but returns with Minori and Tuya instead of vegetables. They reveal they want to join Log Horizon to thank Shiraya for his past help. When Shiraya hesitates, Nana reminds him that he's now a guild master and needs to behave like a leader. Shiraya then welcomes the 2 new additions to Log Horizon and as their first mission, instructs them to eat curry with the guild. With Akiba now bustling with activity, Natsugu and Akatsuki take Tuya and Minori under their wing for training. As Shiraya also starts experimenting with his scribe subclass, Marielle starts craving to visit the beach. This gives Shiraya the idea to hold a summer training camp for new players under level 40. The advertisement is posted at the Silverleaf Tree, an opportunity that excites Minori, who wants to train her skills to make up for Shiraya's rescue. Emissaries of the Eastal League of Free Cities arrive at Akiba to invite the Round Table Alliance to a meeting and a formal ball. Having already anticipated this contact, Shiraya informs Krusty that it would be a prime opportunity to learn more about the people of the Earth, but they must be careful not to get deep into politics. The Round Table decides to send Krusty to represent the combat guilds, Michitaka for production guilds, and Shiraya for his skills in analysis and bureaucracy. They set off the following month, along with Henrietta, Akatsuki, and Takayama Misa. At the same time, a training camp also sets off to Chaoshi, where they end up having fun at the beach. Marielle and Minori also speak to the residents as part of Shiraya's suggestion that they learn about the world as much as possible. He reckons that the most important concern is how much the people of the Earth have changed since the catastrophe, as they are no longer programmed NPC. The Round Table representatives arrive at the ancient court of eternal ice and meet with Duke Sergiog during the opening ball. Krusty converses with him about government, asserting that the Round Table Alliance should be recognized as a single body, despite their similar structure with Eastal. Shiraya observes that both the adventurers and Earthlings are wary of each other. Finally, Princess Reinisia graces the dance with her presence. Natsugu announces to the trainees that they will head into the Reincarnated Forest dungeon for party training the next day, unsupervised. The dance begins, and the orchestra plays a song with the Elder Tale motif. Sergiot exposes that this event will hold many conferences and balls over 10 days, and these formal balls are where young ladies make their social debut. He invites the Round Table representatives to participate in the dance due to the people of the Earth's expectations. Krusty nominates Shiraya to participate, and with the help of Henrietta's bard skills, they quickly impress the entire ball. At the camp, Minori sees Isuzu playing the lute and asks Nayana about bards. Afterwards, she calls Shiraya to inform him of their dungeon training and her insecurity over her usefulness. He reminds her that party tactics are more important than high-level power, which is something that she can definitely manage. The next day at breakfast with the Round Table representatives, they surmise that the Earthling nobles might look down on adventurers, but will most likely attempt to arrange dealings with them to obtain their fighting and technological power. Shiraya proposes that the Round Table Alliance establish rules for when the nobles will inevitably start approaching their guilds individually. Michitaka dissents that this would be virtually impossible to enforce. Shiraya orders Akatsuki to stalk nobles for information about their intentions. Elsewhere, the training camp makes its way to the Reincarnated Forest and is split up into parties. Although the parties are provided time to discuss strategies, Minori has trouble speaking her mind in a group with Tuya, Ruddy, Isuzu, and Sarara after Ruddy and Tuya decide to forego strategy in favor of just forcing their way through. Eventually, the party encounters some skeleton monsters and familiarizes themselves with their teamwork. The first wave was easy to defeat, but the second wave of monsters started focusing on Ruddy due to his reckless attack pattern. The party makes a tactical retreat with their damage dealer in distress, much to their embarrassment. At the ancient court of eternal ice, Krusty introduces himself to Reinisia. The Round Table representatives divide up attendances to various invitations. Shiraya will attend a dinner meeting with Count Kirino Tsukuba and the Academics Guild. Krusty will go to an evening party of young knights, and Michitaka will attend a banquet with Lord Dart. Henrietta asks Krusty if he will manage to endure the party's dialogue, to which he says he's found a virtually unbreakable shield against such situations. Reinisia recalls her introduction to Krusty, where he immediately picks up on her annoyance with new people, making an impression on her. He proposes that they have tea breaks together as an excuse to skip uninteresting meetings, basically using her as a convenient shield against scrutiny from the palace folk. Elsewhere, Akatsuki eavesdrops on two noblemen at the palace and learns that the Knights of Izumo, a group of ancients, have vanished without a trace. Shiraya's meeting with the Academics Guild becomes a heated debate, forcing him to defuse an incoming call from Minori. Meanwhile, Tuya's party had been fighting for the past hour, but are running from skeletons yet again. At the beach, Marielle worries about Tuya's party being the last to finish the dungeon, but is reassured by Natsugu's handle on the tough training. She and Shoryu notice a bubbling activity on the ocean horizon that quickly disappears. At the evening party, Krusty picks up on Reinisia's annoyance with flattery, claiming that his time here has instilled the same. Elsewhere, Akatsuki is dancing in the open courtyard training to imitate the ballroom dance. Shiraya goes to meet her and interrupts her mid-twirl before listening to her report. Akatsuki states that the people of the Earth are split between considering them as a threat or as potential allies because of their strength, also reporting the case of the missing Knights of Izumo, but are disturbed by a weird phenomenon. Everything starts to vibrate and the flowers wither, putting the enchanter and assassin on guard. A mysterious man introduces himself as Lee Gun, the mage of Murrow Lake. Shiraya and Akatsuki follow Lee Gun to his library. He attempts to find something to drink, but Shiraya procures a wine from his magic bag. Lee Gun recollects the requirements for crafting the bag, which surprises Shiraya. Lee Gun disclaims that he is more of a magical scientist than a mage. Shiraya explains the prominent citations of the Mage of Murrow Lake, to which Lee Gun clarifies that he has inherited the title. Being an academic in the study of world-class magic, Lee Gun offers Shiraya and Akatsuki an explanation of the World Fraction spell and the 3 times it has been used in history, with Shiraya correctly deducing the 3rd time being the catastrophe. Lee Gun explains that 350 years ago, the human, elf, and dwarf races destroyed the Alf Kingdom out of jealousy of the Alves' advanced magical technologies. Seeking revenge, the Rukwinj were the masterminds behind the long, terrible war between humans, dwarves, and elves to avenge their people's destruction. However, after their defeat, they cast the First World Fraction, which resulted in the creation of the endlessly respawning demi-human monsters. This pushed the planet into a world war, forcing humanity to create powerful warriors, ancients, and beast men. Still, at a disadvantage around 240 years ago, they were forced to cast the Second World Fraction to summon the adventurers to their aid. Lee Gun invited Shiraya due to his reputation as a mage, his history beginning some 98 years ago. Shiraya confirms that the events according to the game's rate of time correlate to the real world by a factor of 12, including the start of the open beta, which brought the human-controlled adventurers, and when he began playing Elder Tale. Lee Gun then explains his spirit theory, which involves how revival works, and that XP in the form of memories is lost in the process, a theory which Shiraya decides to withhold from the Round Table Alliance for the time being. Meanwhile, Minori becomes tired of the same outcomes in training and finally decides to speak her mind to the party. Minori suggests the party should go to the dungeon in the afternoon. Reddy disagrees, but she points out that they don't survive the dungeon for very long, making ample time to discuss strategy. She then says that she doesn't know any of them, what they like, dislike, their playstyle, or how their class worked. Tuya mentions that as a samurai, he can taunt the enemy to draw their attention. They realize that using their skills simultaneously will result in Ruddy drawing the monster's attention instead of Tuya. Seeing the benefit of this new information, Ruddy formally apologizes to Minori. From there, each person began discussing their individual spells and capabilities. The team spent the entire day discussing strategies for fighting, which they would implement the next day. The party decides to apply party tactics to their approach, with Tuya taking the front line to attract the skeletons. Ruddy starts slowly by using lesser spells to pick off lone enemies. Minori acts as an operator to alert Sarara to heal Tuya, then scouts the area as field monitor before giving the all-clear to engage formally. Isuzu and Ruddy work together to eliminate the rest of the skeletons quickly. Then the party immediately assumes a patrol file to advance the dungeon. They realize they have just cleared the section and rejoice in their triumph. Minori appreciates Shiraya's teachings, seeing that the conversations in battle have made the improvised party into true friends. Shiraya finished transcribing documents for Henrietta. She notices his fatigue, which he says is probably from yesterday's dance. He was stressing over his notes on Lee Gun's lecture, especially the loss of memories. He receives a call from Minori who reports on her discussion with her team and the progress they've made to clear the dungeon. Shiraya congratulates her and realizes he doesn't need to rush over his findings of the world. Soon the adventurers face a new problem as the Sahuagin army makes a surprise attack on the beach, quickly overwhelming the adventurers. Outmatched, Shoribu tells Marielle to call for reinforcements. At the beach, the battle against the Sahuagin continues. The trainers form a pickup group trying to cooperate on the defense. At Regrena Forest, the camp begins encountering an unusual amount of goblins inland, and Nayana oversees a massive goblin army approaching from the north. Word quickly reaches the palace while Nayana returns to camp with an assessment of the army. The trainers don't have telepathic links with the Crescent Moon to check on the other training group, but Tuya's party does as they return from fighting goblin scout patrols. Natsugu is surprised to learn about the Sahuagin attack, who usually reside further south. The trainers decided to regroup with Marielle and hold the call to home spell as a last resort. After pooling their knowledge, Natsugu informs Shiraya, who organizes an emergency relay conference with the Round Table Alliance. Shiraya reports that an estimated 10,000 goblins and several hundred Sahuagin have appeared, and postulated that the recent attacks are part of the quest Return of the Goblin King. The forest trainers have reunited with Marielle, but soon notice a goblin raiding force marching towards the nearby town of Chaoshi. With barely any defenses, Tuya and Ruddy request that their party defend the town, but everyone else is hesitant for the adventurers to intervene. Shiraya summons Saudru and the West Wind Brigade to the ancient court of eternal ice to aid in its defense should it come under attack. He then informs the Round Table representatives of his hypothesis that a death induces memory loss, which Krusty verifies and shockingly reveals that he had already lost some memories of the real world. Elsewhere, Minori persuades the trainers to let her party deploy as scouts, only to take off to defend the town. She decides that since they are not strong enough to defend the town, they will attack the goblins directly instead. Minori and her party members get ready to attack the goblins. Upon realizing the dangerousness of this mission, Minori hesitates a bit, but Tuya and other members come forward with firm resolve, enabling Minori to begin the attack. Meanwhile, at the Council of the Eastal Lords, they begin coming up with wild theories that the goblin invasion is a plot by the adventurers. Baron Cranit points out how such a claim is a drastic leap, but the other lords remind him this private meeting was so that everyone could speak their mind. Michitaka grows steadily impatient as the representatives remain on hold. Krusty supposes the lords are probably discussing matters they didn't want to mention to the adventurers. Shiraya theorizes that the lords probably don't want to be indebted to the adventurers and would thus likely try to enlist the aid of the Knights of Izumo. Meanwhile, Rhaenysia sits alone at the pavilion when she overhears two of the lords talking about the possible sacrifice of Tsukuba and how expensive it would be to hire the adventurers. However, what shocks her the most is the decision to hold the fact the Knights of Izumo had disappeared. When the Round Table Alliance's representatives are finally summoned, she crosses paths with them, and after a little banter with Krusty, she leaves them to their meeting. Minori is reporting by telepathy that they have cleared the area of enemies and are resting. Having predicted that the Lords would try to gather more information, Shiraya uses the same tactic against them. He asks that the Knights of Izumo be summoned to work with the adventurers, but the Lords make no response. Reinija barges into the meeting and reveals that the Knights are missing and the Lords should not treat adventurers in such a manner. Afterward, Shiraya, Akatsuki, Krusty, and Reinija make their way to Akiba by griffins. Shiraya is impressed by the princess's performance, pointing out that she understood the due respect for the freedom, and she might be the one to change the cities of Eastal. Shiraya and others leave for Akiba while Michitaka is left alone at the palace. As Shiraya leads the princess through the streets, she is amazed at the sights and sounds of the city. The three arrive at Shopping District 8. Callison formally introduces himself to the princess. At the same time, Shiraya and Callison arrange equipment and armor for the princess. At dawn, hundreds of adventurers have gathered, waiting for the event arranged at short notice. With a snap of his finger, Shiraya illuminates the area with magic lights. He publicly introduces himself and quickly informs the crowd that a goblin army of 20,000 has appeared in the northern Kanto Hills and threatens the Eastal League of Free Cities. Eastal will not fall, but they will lose about 30% of their forces. Reinija notices that the adventurers are immediately discussing this news, examining maps, and hypothesizing a strategy for the invasion. This caliber of intelligence is on par with the military minds of Eastal, which makes her wonder about the social class among adventurers. Shiraya claims that the adventurers should have no trouble defending Akiba and have no reason to save Eastal if they only care about themselves. However, a girl has come to say something about that. At Krusty's signal, multiple spotlights illuminate Reinija, making her very nervous for a moment. She begins by introducing herself, then elaborates on the severity of the danger now that the Knights of Izumo cannot be summoned. With nothing of value to offer to the prosperous city of Akiba, she has only her thanks to give, and the promise to ensure the freedom of adventurers is recognized. She then formally asks them to fight with her for their goodwill and freedom. The adventurers agree to her help call and prepare for the incoming war. The training group reunites at Chaoshi. Marielle is impressed at the zeal of all the trainees to defend the town. She assembles the adventurers for a final defense, but Isuzu is apprehensive at Ruddy's enthusiasm for adventure. On the other hand, Krusty and others form squads and devise a plan to tackle this large-scale attack of monsters. At Kasumi Lake, Takayama Misa puts a magic salve on Reinija's eyelids, enabling her to see the battle unfold close up as Krusty's group engages the goblin army in battle. A larger mob-like goblin force charges the advancing adventurer army. Two mages cover Krusty as he repeatedly cuts down goblins, then releases a massive blow that destroys the mob and cuts a small canyon into the ground. As Reinija watches in amazement, Misa calmly informs Krusty that goblin reinforcements in the form of two hill giants have arrived. Standing in the line of fire, Krusty calmly signals for a magic barrage on the giants, then slays one of them. Reinija realizes that he is enjoying the fight but also appears lonely. Back in Chaoshi, Isuzu worries over Ruddy, but he claims to be just fine. As Minori and Tuyo patrol over the bridge, she sees something up the river and summons the camp leaders. When they arrive, they see at least 1,000 Sakuajin monsters in the distance moving towards Chaoshi. The trainees, led by Tuida and encouraged by Natsudu, persuade Marielle to let them defend the town. As soon as Marielle gives the order to fight, Minori takes charge of her party. Shiraya is informed of the engagement at Chaoshi and orders the Osapi to hurry to reinforce the 60 adventurers defending the town. With the onslaught taking a huge toll on them, the party soon finds themselves overpowered by a higher-level group of hobgoblins and dire wolves. Minori starts losing control of the battle as Tuda gets pummeled to critical health. However, Ruddy suddenly tackles the two wolves, diverting them away and slaying them in an explosion. In the aftermath, Sarara and Minori try in vain to heal and revive him. Tearfully realizing the inevitable, Isuzu reveals his nature as an earthling, meaning he would die permanently. Refusing to give up, Minori immediately calls Shiraya for his aid. Shiraya and Akatsuki leave the command center under Callison to attend Minori's plea, flying to Chaoshi on his griffin. Recollecting what he learned from Lee Gun, Shiraya instructs the trainees to keep applying resurrection and MP restoration magic on Ruddy until he arrives. He theorizes that the connection between Ruddy's mind and body requires mending to halt his decay. Takayama Misa and Reinija report to Krusty, informing him of the current battlefield after having decimated most of the goblins with his forces. He prepares to confront their general, whose dire wolves are howling in the distance. Shiraya gathers some materials from his inventory and finishes the product. Upon arriving in town, he orders Akatsuki to maintain the perimeter of monsters and adventurers. He finds Minori and the others but first demands their non-disclosure of the new spell he will use, to which they all comply with silence. Shiraya uses mana channeling to redistribute the party's MP to decent levels, including Reddy, and uses Revival Incense to reconnect his mind and body for consciousness temporarily. Reddy wakes to realize he has died and tells the party not to worry because the risk of death is only a natural part of fighting as an adventurer. He tells them to forgive Isuzu for keeping his secret, but Minori reveals that she is also known. Shiraya disagrees with Reddy's contentment with death. Such resolve was shallow to a true adventurer. Reddy asks what he needs to do, to which Shiraya presents a contract. Reddy accepts the risk, stating that as an adventurer, he only wants to help people in need. With the help of Isuzu, he writes his name into the contract and is then engulfed in brilliant light as he is revived at the cathedral in Akiba. Krusty successfully kills the goblin general, and the Sakuagin are also defeated. At the cathedral, Reddy discovers his new adventurer subclass that includes the innate privileges of adventurers. Isuzu enters the building and reprimands his reckless action, making him promise never to do such a thing again. She then demands he expose his life to her as reconciliation. A party is held to celebrate this success. At the party, Krusty is in the center of a small group of Earthlings, being praised for the victory over the goblin forces. Marielle has just given Isuzu permission to leave the Crescent Moon Alliance so she can join Log Horizon. Henrietta is on the hunt for the no-show Shiraya, telling Nayanta and Natsubu that it wasn't okay for him to be missing. Hearing Henrietta calling for him, Shiraya makes a hasty retreat into the night, leaving Akatsuki behind to fall into Henrietta's amorous clutches. Outside, Shiraya receives a call from Mishima informing him of the West's Demon Festival at Suzuka Gate. On his way to consult with Lee Gun, Shiraya hears a woman telling a story to a group of children. He is shocked to hear a retelling of how he transformed Reddy from an Earthling to an adventurer to save his life, since it was supposed to be a secret. The mysterious woman finishes her story with a promise of more later and vanishes into the shadow of an archway. Shiraya is surprised when Lee Gun congratulates him for creating new world-class magic, who explains he felt the power when it occurred. Lee Gun adds that he has also felt the same power from the West, which Shiraya deduces to be in Minami. Meanwhile, Shiraya, lost in thought, was found by Henrietta looking for him to bring back to the party. Several days later, Reinisia is welcomed to Akiba with banners and cheering crowds. Shiraya exposes that instead of announcing the loss of memory during the revival, he spread the information in the form of a rumor. Later at night, Minori is reading her notebook on the roof of Log Horizon headquarters. Shiraya appears and asks if there is something he can help. She almost confesses her feelings, but instead asks about changing her skills. Several days later, Marielle announces the Autumn Festival under the name Libra. The commencement of the Libra Festival has changed the atmosphere in Akiba as all people are feeling relieved and energetic. Our adventurers are busy doing different chores for the festival. Detached from the city's activities, Shiraya continues his work until a strong breeze scatters his papers across the room. Just as he cries out in frustration, Henrietta enters the room to deliver some documents he requested. Trying to return to work, he's surprised by Akatsuki emerging from hiding under his desk. They move to the rooftop table to eat the expensive red bean buns she has brought. Minori tries deciding what to wear for the event while Isuzu enters her room with news of a pre-festival dance. Minori explains that she intends to use the contest reward an invitation to Reinisia's Twilight dinner party to improve the public's trust in Shiraya, which had been wavering as of late. Alone in her room, Akatsuki realizes that she invited Shiraya on a date and has no cute clothes to wear. The next day, Shiraya participates with Akatsuki and Minori at the cake buffet. Shiraya receives a large amount of envy from the other participants as the two girls serve him a cake, which only escalates when Akatsuki and Minori begin competing for his attention. Minori has changed her subclass to apprentice and became Shiraya's student scribe. In this way, she can use her skills to assist people and show them how valuable Shiraya is. At her skill level, she organizes Callison's paperwork rapidly, impressing the guild master. At a tomato restaurant, Nayanta nonchalantly expels a rowdy Earthling lord out of the building and reports the matter to Shiraya. While the Black Sword Knights and DDDs work on maintaining order during the festival, they resolve more disputes involving the people of the Earth. After putting a stop to yet another rowdy Earthling, Shiraya finally notices the strangeness of the Earthling's behavior as Minori reports inconsistencies in the festival's paperwork resulting from Earthling's errors. Shiraya confirms that the city may be under attack and makes haste for his office, disgruntled at his own carelessness. Meanwhile, a vessel named Spirit Ship Eagle, led by the sinister-looking Malves, prepares to make contact with Akiba. Shiraya believes that the people of the Earth, led by the newly arrived Lord Malves, a merchant nobleman from Westaland, are responsible for attacking Akiba, and that Malves seeks to destroy the Round Table's reputation and interfere with Akiba's treaty with Eastal. He concludes based on the logic that when Elder Tale was just a game, there were no quests that involve removing a leader from power, and adventurers wouldn't be interested in something that tedious. Henrietta suggests that it might be necessary to cancel the festival, but Shiraya counters by saying that canceling the festival benefits mouths because it would cause people to question the Round Table's organizing and problem-solving ability. To prepare a counterattack, Shiraya tasks his comrades to gather more information while Minori does her best to keep Calison's office running using the skills she learned from Shiraya. Afterwards, Shiraya begins plotting all the points of disturbances caused by the people of the Earth, but has difficulty discerning a pattern from their seemingly random actions until he finally realizes that the people are actually improvising on the spot. Pressed to come up with a solution, Shiraya gets a spark of genius after meeting Saojiro, who has won the cake contest with the help of his guild. In the meantime, Miles crashes the Twilight Banquet and corners Reinisia over his supposed mishandled cargo documents. Elsewhere, in a brilliant countermeasure, Shiraya uses the West Wind Brigade's infatuation with Saojiro to incentivize them to patrol the city and handle the disturbances. The group then learns of the banquet disturbance and decides to make the festival enjoyable as their true counterattack. Reinisia and Alyssa are supervising the Twilight Banquet. It is explained that its goal was to deepen relationships with adventurers and that Mal's attendance was not expected. Troubles arise when they receive news of Mal's arriving at the banquet with a ship full of seafood, needing immediate storage. Followed by bodyguards, he tells Reinisia he sent all the necessary papers and even received an answer, though neither Reinisia nor the Round Table knew of such matters. Shiraya finally makes an appearance at the banquet. Shiraya walks in on Mal's and Reinisia's confrontation, purposefully ignoring Mal's until questioned. After introducing himself, Michitaka of Marine Organization and Krusty of DDD also entered the scene, introducing themselves as they approached. Krusty produces the letter Mal's claimed to have sent the princess, explaining it is misdirected. Michitaka explains that while the Round Table's warehouses are full, his guild's climate-controlled warehouses can easily handle Mal's cargo. Michitaka even offers help transferring the cargo. When Mal's hesitates, Krusty wonders aloud if the cargo even existed and whether the letter had been sent, or if it was a plot against the princess all along. Knowing he has been caught in a lie and cannot unload non-existent cargo, Mal's retreats. Reinisia is relieved and grateful for the help. Shiraya informs her this was just a side issue, and they were here to get her. She responds with confusion. Everyone is excited about the final events because it is the last day of the Liber Festival. The Crescent Moon Alliance puts on its fashion show, and while everyone is partying and having fun, Akatsuki notices that Shiraya isn't there with them. Shiraya then excludes himself from the continuing festivities until Minori voices her concern over his actions. However, he reassures her that he accepts and is used to appearing as the villain as long as he can accomplish his tasks, something which Akatsuki berates herself for being blind to despite having been by his side ever since the catastrophe. Later that night, Shiraya meets with Ushima, the contact he sent to Minami. However, the strange storyteller from the ancient court of eternal ice, Dariella, confronts him instead. He quickly sees through her disguise and she reveals her true form as Nuraha, the guild mistress of Minami's plant Hyaden. They each reveal their information on each other's accomplishments, with Nuraha also voicing her intention to recruit Shiraya. She then states her knowledge of his research into finding a way back to the real world and bribes Shiraya with her resources while prodding his ambivalence towards Akiba. Ultimately, Shiraya resists her seduction and chooses to remain in Akiba as her enemy, a statement that only makes her want him even more as she leaves. As the Liber Festival enters its last stages, the members of Log Horizon sit down to dinner and reassure Shiraya of their intention to help him in whatever way they can. Faced with new challenges, Shiraya issues Log Horizon with their next goal of changing the world of Elder Tale. The ending scene shows Lee Gun asking Shiraya if he can come with him. The end. If you enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more.